The fastest way to become a data analyst isn't the path that has the most learning in it. It actually is the path that has the least. Because almost nobody is stuck here because they're not smart enough. They're stuck here because they're doing 5 things at once, and not one of them produces the proof they can actually do the job. So I'm self-taught, and I have no degree in this. So everything in this video is actually what moved, not what sounded good on a syllabus. Now there are 3 things that make this slow, and then 3 things that make this fast. Then the exact 90 days that I'd run if I had to start all over on Monday. And that third thing on that second list is probably the one thing that almost nobody does because it feels like cheating a little bit. So stay for that one. So let's start with why it's taking so long, because you can't speed something up until you actually know what's slowing it down. And that's time sink number 1, which is collecting tools. You learn some SQL and then you get a comment saying that you need to learn Python first. So you go learn Python. And then you read a post and they mention Power BI being very valuable to do. So you go start Power BI. So 6 months later, you now have 6 half-finished skills and 0 finished anything. And here's the part that actually stings a bit once you understand it, is that collecting feels like progress because every new tool starts with a fresh beginner tutorial, and beginner tutorials are the easiest thing in the world to complete. So in reality, you're not learning anything, you're just restarting in this loop. So let's take a look at an actual job posting and what skills they are asking for. So as you can see here, they're asking for SQL. They actually bolded it for us, so how nice of them. You can see Excel and be familiar with at least one BI tool. Now, majority of everything else is just good communication and talking to people who aren't actually analysts. That's the job. That 12 tool wish list you're studying for shows up in small slices of postings, and those roles weren't actually hiring for career changers anyways. Every tool doesn't add a month or 2 to your timeline. It multiplies it because now you have to keep all of them warm at the same time. Now, time sink number 2 is building projects that nobody actually asked for. So you'll download a clean data set, you make a dashboard, it's blue, it has 4 charts, and it answers a question no human on earth has ever asked out loud. The problem isn't that the project's inherently bad. It's the problem that it proves nothing. It proves the wrong thing. It proves you can follow instruction. Nobody's hiring for that. A hiring manager is trying to answer exactly one question about you. And that's, if I hand this person a messy business problem on Tuesday, do they come back on Thursday with something I can actually use? Now, a clean data set with a clean answer says nothing about that. If anything, it says that you've never worked with data that fought back. And I see this time and time after again, after mentoring thousands of people over the years, that they'll throw spaghetti at the wall building these projects without actually having that business question first before they even started anything. And that's the part that's always missing from this. So let's talk about time sink number 3. And this is an expensive one. Waiting until you feel ready. So there's a number in your head, 1 more course, 1 more project, then you'll start applying. The problem is that number moves. It has never once stayed where somebody put it. And all while you're waiting, you're not standing still. You're getting slower because you're studying for a job you've never seen the inside of. You don't learn what that job wants from a course. You learn that from rejection after rejection, from a question you stumbled on during an interview, from a recruiter telling you what they were actually looking for. Ready isn't a feeling you arrive at. It's actually something that happens after you've been in the process for a while. And then there's that second cost that nobody counts. Every month you wait, the thing you learned in month 1 is decaying. So that part of your studying is just maintenance on a skill you're not actually using for anything. That's why people plateau on month 8 and they can't explain why. They're not learning slower. They're spending half of their hours holding their ground. So that's kind of where the time goes. And here's exactly how you get it back. Fast thing number 1, freeze your stack and freeze your target title. 1 query language, 1 BI tool, 1 type of spreadsheet. That's the entire kit for entry level. SQL, because that's the actual language of the job. 1 BI tool, Power BI or Tableau. Pick whatever one shows up in more listings, which right now of this video is Power BI. And then never reconsider. In spreadsheets, because half of the real work still happens there. So either pick Google Sheets or pick Excel. And notice what's not on that list. Python is definitely not on this list. Not because Python is useless, because it's almost never the thing standing between you and your very first data job offer. And then you could actually learn it on payroll like most analysts do. So freeze that title too, because you want to stick to data analyst, not data scientist, not analytics engineering, not to whichever one had the highest salary in a video you watched last week. Because the second you widen the target, you widen your study list. And that widened study list is exactly how 6 months turns into 2 years. So frozen means frozen here. When some comment tells you to add something to your list, the answer is after the offer. It's actually pretty funny because you can't always trust job listings. What I used in the first months on some of my very first data jobs were nothing what the job listing actually mentioned. Some mentioned use Python, some mentioned use SQL, and the actual job was Google Sheets and PowerPoint. So you can't always trust a job listing, but you can trust that the core SQL, Excel, or spreadsheet and a BI tool can go a very long way. So fast thing number 2, one project that runs all the way from question to recommendation. So every project that has gotten someone hired has exactly the same 4 parts to it. A question somebody would pay to have answered, data messy enough that you had to make a judgment call, an answer with a number in it, and then a recommendation that you defend in a meeting. Most portfolios have parts 2 and 3. So now they have data and they have charts. They're missing the question and the recommendation, which are the only 2 parts a hiring manager is reading for. Now here's that speed argument, because this video is about speed. 1D project is faster than 6 shallow ones, and it does more work for you. It's your portfolio piece. It's the bullet points on your resume. It's the interview story. They say, walk me through something you've built. It's content if you post about it. 4 assets, 1 build. 6 shallow projects give you 6 links nobody opens. And that depth is what makes it defensible. You can talk for 10 minutes about a project you actually wrestled with. But on the other hand, you could talk for 40 seconds about one you followed along with, which brings us to that one that feels like cheating. Fast thing number 3, you start applying before you finished, on purpose. Here's what actually happens. You apply to 12 roles while you're still building. Most are going to ignore you completely anyways, and that's fine. That's the expected outcome. But then 2 of them send you a screening question you couldn't answer. One recruiter mentions they wanted someone who built dashboards for a real stakeholder. One rejection actually tells you the SQL bar was higher than you thought. That is the highest quality information of this entire process, and it's free. It's specific to your market, and it only exists on the other side of applying. Any of this information from a course. The course actually was recorded before that job posting existed. So you go fix exactly what was flagged. Now you're studying with a target on the wall instead of studying in general. Studying in general is the slowest thing a human being can do. And the objection is always the same. What if I get an interview and I'm not ready for it? And that's actually a good thing, because that interview is going to teach you more than the next month of tutorials will ever teach you. And in the worst case is that you don't get the job that you didn't have 5 minutes ago anyways. All right, 3 time sinks, 3 accelerators. Here's how it all fits into 90 days. Day 1 through 30 will be our foundations, and I mean the boring ones. SQL every day in small doses, selects, filtering, joins, group bys, aggregations, then subqueries, and then Windows functions at the end. That order, and not a random order, because each one only makes sense on top of the last one. Small and daily beats 5 hours on a Sunday. This is the language, and nobody has learned a language by binging it in 1 week. And at the same time, this is the part everyone skips. Your resume and your LinkedIn get rebuilt in week 1, not month 3, because those 2 things are what converts everything else that you do. Great work and having a bad resume behind it is like being excellent at a job that you never showed up to do. By day 30, you should be able to write a query with a join and a group by without looking anything up. And you should have a resume that says data analyst at the top instead of your old title. That's the whole month. It's not glamorous and it's not skippable. Day 31 through 60 is proof and people. This is where you get your projects built. All 4 parts, questions through recommendation. On data, you actually cleaned yourself. And at the same time, you start talking to actual human beings, not that spray and pray networking. 15 minutes a day, a few people, a specific message about a specific thing that they posted. Because a lot of the roles you want are filled prior to ever being posted. Or they're filled by somebody a person in the loop already recognized. People are actually how you find out the door exists. And these two actually feed each other. Project actually gives you a reason to reach out in the first place. That isn't asking for a favor. And the conversations that you have tell you whether the project is aimed at anything real here. So by day 60, you should have a few pieces of proof and a handful of people that actually know your name. That combination is what makes the last 30 days actually work. So I want to talk about real quick is the messages you send to people should not be favors or requests for them to actually review anything that you have. They should just be conversation starters. What has worked for many people inside Analyst Hive is a DM template of just getting that conversation started and an icebreaker based on that LinkedIn profile that they're reaching out to. Now, days 61 through 90 is reps. Interviewing is a separate skill altogether from analytics. You can be genuinely good at SQL and lose the offer because you narrated your own project very badly for 4 minutes. So you write out your stories, the project, the time something broke, a time you disagreed with somebody, situation, task, action, result, out loud, not in your head. And then you practice your recruiter screen, which is mostly the why data, why now, and what is your salary range. And you decide your salary range before anyone asks it, because a version of you who gets asked something cold will always say something lower than what you'd want to live with for the next 2 years. Now, 90 days isn't a promise that you're hired on day 90. It's a promise that on day 90, you're actually a candidate instead of a student. And that switch right there is the whole game. Students wait to be ready. Candidates are in the process, collecting information, fixing the specific thing that got flagged last week. If that 90-day layout sounded oddly specific, it's because it's the thing I actually built. Analyst Hive is daily tasks for 90 days in that order. So you never open your laptop wondering what today's move is. I'll leave the link in the description below if you'd rather have the sequence than more information. So quickly, slow is collecting tools, building projects nobody asked for, and waiting until you feel ready. Fast is a frozen stack, one project that runs question to recommendation, so end to end, and then applying before you're actually finished so the market tells you exactly what to fix. Then 30 days as foundations, 30 days as proof and people, and then 30 days of reps. None of that is hard, it's just narrow. And narrow is the part people can't stand doing. Pick the narrow version, it's genuinely faster and it's boring on purpose. So tell me in the comments below that one thing that you've been studying that you're secretly not sure if you actually need it or not. And I'll tell you a straight answer whether it's on a critical path or you're quietly costing yourself months. And if you want each piece of this broken down on its own, so like resumes, projects, how to become a data analyst, interviews, you name it. And that's exactly what I do on this channel. So I hope you can subscribe and like this video. I'll see you on the next one.